standing next to Manu Ginobili, where you're going, wow, that's a big difference between those two. Saw this story. Our good buddy, Gilbert Arenas, in his podcast, Gil's Arena, hosted by Underdog Fantasy, live basketball show on YouTube where anything can happen. And that's exactly what happened. Zion Williamson showed up. I don't know if he was scheduled to show up, but Gilbert Arenas, the former All-Star, co-host of Gil's Arena, joining us on the program. How did this come about that Zion Williamson just dropped in?
He just literally dropped in. We were actually talking about him. We were talking about the weight and the problems and having chefs and being an NBA player and being young. And while we're in the middle of that, he's walking past the window. And then he sees us. He's like, yo. And then he decided to come on in.
Okay. Asking that question about dieting can be a sensitive topic. We find out if we're fat shaming somebody. How much thought did you give to that of actually asking him about dieting?
None. We're athletes. It was always a concern of mine with him. When everyone was talking about 285, he's a beast. And I'm like, 285 at 19? That's probably going to be a problem in the NBA because he hasn't touched the NBA weight. He hasn't went through the NBA schedule where we're doing more sitting than college, right? We're drinking Gatorades. We're on planes late night where we gain pounds during the season. I had a problem with that, right? I gained 20. I was at 224. I came in at 206 in training camp. By January, I was 224, and I was freaking out. I had to figure out, what am I doing wrong here playing 42 minutes a game?
But can you follow LeBron's regimen? I mean, you got to be disciplined, but LeBron's figured this out, Gilbert.
Yes, he has. He's very disciplined. He's very self-aware. But he's figured it out later on in his career. You remember there was a time where LeBron was 285. Remember we were doing comparisons of the first time he was in the Olympics, and we're like, he's 2 inches taller than Karl Malone. He's the same weight, right? He was on the heavier side, and he had to make that conscious decision. If he wanted to be a longevity player, he had to dial it down. So, I think Zion now has realized that, his biggest challenge will be, maintaining a good, healthy weight for himself.
Yeah, I've said all along that his biggest opponent is himself, and trying to figure that out. Charles Barkley went through this. Mm-hmm. When you're the round mound of rebound in college, and then you get to the pros, Moses Malone kind of had to wake him up. Do the Pelicans have somebody who can sort of grab Zion and say, let's go through this together, or you've got to do this if you want to have any kind of longevity in the NBA?
Yeah, at the age, and I know some people's like, well, you're making it easy for him. No, I'm trying to make it easy for him. And the easy part is he's gonna need help. Because the age, that this is not an age where we're eating salad and kale and carrots and drinking water. Like, that's not that age. Like when we were all 23, 24, we were still eating hamburgers and stuff. So he's going to still eat on the healthier side with steaks and stuff, but this is more lean fish, and his body is not ready for that. That is going to be a shell shock to him, and it's going to be miserable. And to lose weight, it can't be a miserable experience. It still has to be fun for you to stick with that diet. Like, I'm still having trouble breaking soda and donuts and cookies here and there. So it's one of those things where, there has to be a player that's with him, that's helping him along, that has the same problem. And it's one of those two-man tandems. But you can see that he's really aware of it, and he's trying.
Did you talk about any of the other social media stuff with women with him?
No. And if anybody noticed, you have 3 NBA players there. We didn't even think of touching that subject because we know if that was us, we wouldn't want that to be talked about. This is one of those things where it was on a fly moment, right? No one expected it. but we all had the same sense of whatever he's going through personal in his personal life, leave it there. Let's keep it basketball related. Let's keep it to, what's really important here, right? We all have and made bad decisions when it comes to the women we choose. We're not perfect here. But that has nothing to do with how to perform. We need you on that court to be who you are.
He's Gilbert Arenas. His podcast is Gil's Arena, and it's on Underdog Fantasy. Rashad McCants and Brendan Jennings. Josiah Johnson is on that podcast as well. If I said you could have Zion for the next 5 years or John Morant for the next 5 years.
Oh, man. And I get to train them?
Yeah, because both need some help.
Yeah, if I'm training, that means I can watch, my asset. If it's mine, then I'll take Zion.
Really?
Yeah, because I'll make sure that he's on the right track all the time. I'm gonna micromanage the asset. I'm gonna make sure that he has the right people around him. He has the right staff, even when he gets home.
But that's the same thing with Ja, though, Gil.
Yeah, it's the same. The kids. It's going to get worse for the NBA with young players because the money's going up, right? So that's more money. There was a point where, before 95, players can come in, unproven players can come in and sign, 40, 50, $80 million deals. And then in 95, they cut it down and had rookie salary caps. Well, now you have like LaMelo Ball, 2-3 years in, $260 million, right? All of this money is like giving, 100, 200, 300 million to an early frat kid where he's in his party days, right? It's kind of dangerous.
How would you have done with that kind of money?
Well, we see what I did with the money I
had. What's the most money you spent on something you look back and go, what was I thinking?
Probably the Hugh Hefner's grotto pool. You hear about the grotto, and I found a guy who did that, and I said I want it, but bigger.
Wait, you had him replicate the grotto at the Playboy Mansion?
Yes, but the problem is I don't have the Playboy
bunnies. Let's play guess how much that cost. Paulie, I'll start with you. What do you think that the grotto at Gilbert's house?
Gilbert's grotto? I'm going to go $225,000.
Oh, I think you would laugh at that.
Really?
Yeah. That's probably just the furniture. Todd, what do you think?
$783,000.
All right. Seton, what do you think?
Hold on. We're just talking about the grotto part?
The pool.
The whole
pool.
Dang, man, that's crazy. I don't want to be insulting. I'm going to say $75,000.
Oh, you're being insulting. Yeah. The pool skimmer probably is more than that.
I'm just going with the rock formation part. That's all.
Yeah.
It's $75,000.
Yeah. Marvin?
1.2.
I was going to say $1.5 million.
It was about 700.
Oh, 700. Okay.
I went over. I said 783.
Good for you.
Oh, only 700,000. That sounds like a bargain.
That's what I said. 7,500.
You didn't have.
You started off by saying, kind of stupid purchase that you made.
Yeah. Did you have to run it by? Were you married at the time?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dame Lillard has taken away the bargaining power of the Portland Trailblazers. So how does Portland get something out of this that they can say this is a win-win situation? Like, what's Portland do to say to their fan base, we traded him, we got what we think will make us better?
They both have their bargaining chips, right? Dame wants out. They're like, okay, we're going to grant it, but we want something back in return that's fair for you. I mean, for us too, this is a business. So at the end of the day, they don't have to trade him. Like
Yeah.
we all assume that if we don't trade you, you're gonna come back here and do what? Sit, destroy your worth. It's your worth still, right? So if you want to be traded for the value you have, you still have to play. There's really, so it's easier if we can get them out now before the season starts. So the guys we have now has the fresh start versus, taking a backseat to Dame. And then when he leaves, like you'd rather give the Sheldon and Scoot the ball from tip off versus Dame starting with it and then handing it off to him after he leaves.
What did you think of Victor Wembanyama?
Love the skill set. The adjustment period, from, France to now, there's going to be, we're seeing that he's adjusting game by game. From now to training camp is going to be an adjustment. From the training camp first preseason game till the opening game is going to be a different adjustment too. So we're going to see different levels. We're going to see, right now we should just, look at the little things he's doing, throwing it up, re-tipping it back. We're going to see some of those very great highlights. And by January, I think he would be in full motion of what we should expect. He said something very interesting in his press conference. He said, it's less physical, which we all assume that coming to America is more physical for you, not realizing how he described EuroLeague. Everyone is on the ground. No one's flying. So because everyone's on the ground, everyone's battling. There's more pushing. There's more shoving.
Mm-hmm.
In the NBA, everyone's trying to jump over you, run around you. So to him, it's less physical for him than it was when he was overseas.
Who was the guy that you had to adjust when you faced him? Because Wembanyama with that wingspan, you don't see too many of those guys, and the ability to be on the perimeter as well. Was there a player where you go, oh my God, I got to readjust where my release point is?
When you're driving, it was Shaquille O'Neal. We had Yao. You had to be going in that lane versus Yao. He's not going to hit you with the body, but you had to go over, the long arms. Karolinko, for some reason.
Well, he had a pretty good wingspan.
Yeah, he had a pretty good wingspan, and he jumped, and it was just so awkward that you never knew when it was coming, right? So those three players stuck out the most.
Yeah, I just can't imagine, when you're with these guys in a social setting like Shaq, but to see him on a basketball floor where there's certain dimensions and you have to abide by those dimensions when you're going down the lane against him, would you be more concerned about him blocking your shot or just knocking you to the ground?
With Shaq knocking you to the ground, because half of Shaq's defense was you not coming in here. So that first foul that Shaq was going to give you was going to be hurtful, right? It was going to hurt. And now you're second guessing, do you want to actually go back and catch that part two? So that was part of his great defense, that he's going to let you know what's in here. So now you can second guess. With Wemby, it's going to be more just trying to block your shot. So he's going to get dunked on a lot because he's going to give them the opportunity to try to come in there. Shaq wasn't giving you the opportunity.
Yeah, I never thought of that Shaq purposely was going to hit you hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you wouldn't want, like guys like Vince. You're like, oh, Vince is going to dunk on Shaq. He hit you hard one time. You're like, I'll do these floaters and these jumpers.
Did you ever say anything to Shaq if he hit you hard?
Ouch.
You never talk back to him?
No, because how he hits, let's say someone like Yao or someone like Tim Duncan trying to come in there, the guards caught the same punishment, right? He couldn't control how hard he was hitting you, right? So it was like, ouch, that hurt,
You don't
a little less force, please.
You don't think he added a little more emphasis just to make sure that you didn't come back?
Yeah, no. When it came that first foul, no matter who came in there,
yeah.
And it seemed like like Derek Fisher and Kobe will open up for the drivers. They'll open up the lane for you to come in there. And you're like, oh, it looks so tempting. It looks so tempting.
Wait a minute. They were leading you to slaughter? Like they're going, go ahead. Go in there. Why don't
It
you?
was part of their strategy. So like somebody like me, D-Wade, LeBron, let them come in here the first time. I'll hit them. And then from there, play regular defense.
Good to talk to you as always. Thanks for making time.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
That's Gilbert Arenas.